Hello, we're live. We are live. I'm just checking we're live, and all this tech's actually working well today, so we're starting well. So welcome, welcome to our free 3-day live event. It's going to be really exciting, and we've got a lot of material to get through. Let me tell you that. So this is our Transform Your Awakening with Grounding 3-day course. So we're going to be addressing different things every single day. To help you move through it without overwhelm, without anxiety, without out of control emotions, without burnout, basically without all the challenges that come along with awakening. We want you to move through that nice and smoothly and nice and easily. So that's the plan. So if you don't know me, if this is your first time coming to one of our events like this, my name's Kelly and I'm from spiritualawakeningsigns.com, and I help people to move through their spiritual awakening with as much ease as possible. And it's not always easy, and I know that you all know that, so this will be a really good event to move through some of these challenges. So if your awakening is overwhelming, if it's ungrounding, if it's emotional, if it's stressful, basically if it's really hard and really long, then there's things we can do to release that, especially anxiety. That's a big one for people. There's a lot of things we can do to change that, and that's what this event's going to be all about. So I'm glad to have you with us, and it's basically, the focus is going to be simple, structured things that you can do, because that's part of the grounding. Structured things that you can do to make your awakening more manageable every single day, because it's a practice, okay? So today's focus is all going to be about releasing anxiety and confusion, because that's a big one for us, and so many of you in the group tell me that anxiety is the worst part of your awakening, and it was a big part of mine too, so I can relate. But what we want to do today is to give your conscious mind a full understanding of what's actually happening to you as you move through this process, because what happens is when your conscious mind and your brain doesn't understand what's happening, and there's all these changes happening and this energy coming into your space, you kind of have this effect where the body thinks it's in danger and the body doesn't understand what this is. So it can trigger a fight or flight kind of state, and that can make you feel awful all of the time, and it perpetuates confusion and overwhelm and anxiety and all these horrible feelings. So today, literally by finishing this live event today, you'll have the information to be able to move forward and to understand the journey, and that in itself is grounding. It's chicken and egg. If you can understand the process that this is going to take, and your brain can get a sense of some structure to this experience, everything else will be so much easier. So just by watching today, you'll be making cognitive shifts that are really going to stand you in good stead and release some of that anxiety and overwhelm and burnout and all these horrible things that we experience. It'll help you to move forward. Okay, so probably the best way to start today is to share a little bit about my experience. So when I came through my spiritual awakening, and we all say that, you know, it happened over a few years, but usually you can look back and see that it spanned most of your life, and it's kind of been woven in certain parts. You can see the little parts of it that have called you on to the next step all the time. But the intensity of my awakening has probably happened over the last 4 or 5 years. So I went through an experience where I was normal party girl, you know, just a normal girl living my life. Did some spiritual stuff, but not much. And all of a sudden I just had this sense that things were going to change. I just knew. I didn't know what it was, but I knew somewhere deep inside me that something was about to explode. And I didn't realise that it was me. So, and basically overnight it seemed all my sensitivities heightened. So I became really emotional, and I became extremely empathic, cripplingly empathic. It was really hard to be around people. And my psychic senses became really sensitive too. So I went from being a little intuitive and feeling sometimes blocked from my intuition to being blasted wide open, picking up on everybody else's stuff, You know, my senses were out of control. I was having visions. I was having connecting with guides. I was experiencing a lot of very strange things that I couldn't always explain. So that's part of what I want to weave in here. There's a reason why grounding is really important. And as I continued to heighten and enjoy the spiritual side of that, I became higher and higher and higher, and real life became more emotional, more turbulent, more confusing. It got to a point where life really was an unmanageable burden. I just couldn't deal with, you know, the standard things and the structure of a day. I just couldn't do it. The awakening was so overpowering that it took up everything. And I became so high and so connected to all this spiritual stuff, which was great in a sense, that eventually I got so high that I crashed. So this is how I learned. This is why I know firsthand that grounding is the most important thing that you really have to do. If you don't ground yourself, your awakening is not going to move along, and you're going to find that you're stuck in the horrible states of it, the hard parts of it, for much, much longer. So don't worry if that's what's going on, because by the end of this 3-day course, you'll have everything that you need to know to move through it the way that I did too. So that's coming, so don't worry. And it's also important to note that now everything's good. So even though I went through that really challenging time, now my intuition's much better than it's ever been. It's in balance. I'm living a normal life. I'm hanging out with my friends. I'm living, you know, with my family and doing good things. And that I wouldn't have been able to do that a few years ago. So it's all about balance. So what I'd like to start off with is really an understanding of how the awakening process occurs, okay, so that you can make that mental picture. And I would encourage you to make that picture in your mind and give your brain some structure to be able to understand how that process is unfolding for you, okay, because there is a structure to it. Sometimes when you're in it, it doesn't feel like there's a structure to it, but hopefully with some of the things we're going to work through today, you'll be able to see quite clearly that you have moved through different steps of it, and you're always stepping through these next milestones, okay, so just be aware of that. So initially what happens is, at a predetermined moment of time, so before you came here, before you were deciding where to incarnate and what mess of trouble you wanted to step into, you decided a time that you were going to allow yourself to awaken, okay, so it's not an accident, it's not a mistake, and it's not a curse, okay, this is a beautiful blessing. We just need to make it that way. But there's a specific time that you've chosen to do that. And what happens is that masses of energy, and phenomenal influx of energy, floods your system. So floods all your bodies, your energetic body, your physical body, and your soul. Okay? So it's more energy than you've ever accepted into your system, maybe in eons of time. Okay? It's really turbulent for us to take in that amount of energy. And then what happens is your psychic centres are opened. So this usually happens really abruptly. Your psychic centres get opened, they get blasted open. So when that happens, you're sensing, you're feeling, hearing, knowing things that you didn't know before. So you might have gone from a little bit of intuition to insane, on point intuition, which sometimes you can't understand. Or you might well have been someone before who had no intuition at all and didn't feel connected, and now all of a sudden you're picking up on all these things and wondering what it is. So there is a purpose to all of this, okay? So these senses really open up and they become really acute. So this is when I started having visions that I just didn't understand, and I wondered why this was happening to me. It's all part of the process, so don't be afraid if that's happening to you. Then we move into the heightening of other sensitivities as well. So we've got a kind of emotional sensitivity that's coming, and this empathic ability is getting really strong. But the psychic sensitivity is blasted wide open as well, and it becomes really overwhelming. So there's a sense of needing to retreat. So I want you to know that if you find yourself pulling away from people, places, things, areas, whatever it is, there's a reason that you're retreating like that. There's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with the way that you're dealing with this process. It's part of the process, and it's necessary for you to go inward to move through the awakening process. So it's okay to step back, and it's natural to step back, and I did it too. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with that if that's what's happening for you just now. But what does happen is that there's so much light in your system and there's so much energy in your system that we don't actually have enough physical density to balance that out. So think of it like getting a little bit top heavy. It's like all this spiritual energy's up top and we kind of start keeling over a little bit. It's too much for us and it can become extremely challenging to manage things, and you just keep wanting to withdraw more and more and more, and that's fine. We're looking for a way to balance it. And then what happens is the energy gets thrust really powerfully up through your chakras. So you'll know that you have chakras from the base of your spine up to the top of your head and beyond. So they come in a line, okay? And as this energy gets thrust through that line, think of it like water being pumped through a fire hydrant, but 10 times stronger. It's really strong. As that gets funneled through that space, what happens is it hits through all the chakras and it comes up against blocks. So as this is moving up through, it's coming up through all these blocks, through each chakra in your system, okay? And the purpose for that is to give you a purer connection to source. So moving all these blocks out of the way and dislodging them is really your highest purpose, because if you can get rid of all those blocks, that energy can flow straight up to source, and you can have a completely clear connection to source. So that's when you have intuition that is absolutely on point, crystal clear. You know, there's no issues, there's no, it's not getting twisted, it's not confused, it's crystal clear, and you know, because it's so clear, your connection to source is so pure that there's nothing in the way. Okay, so that's why all these things are getting shoved right through and getting cleared in that way. It gives you that purer connection to source. And then your emotional centers start becoming really heightened, and they become so sensitive. So if you're sitting there right now wondering why you're crying all the time, or why certain emotions stir sometimes and you don't know why, it's just that your sensitivities have been turned up to max power, okay? So everything's going to set you off and everything's going to trigger you. That's totally natural. It helps you to feel everything. So it's important that you feel everything, because there could have been emotional issues that are creating blocks in the system that you've been running from for a really long time. In fact, there could be issues that you've been running from for lifetimes. It could be the same theme that keeps showing up over and over and over again. And the only way that you really deal with that, and the soul knows that the only way you really deal with that, is to make sure that you feel everything really deeply so that it can be realised and released and healed. So that's a really important part of this. So all those old blocks, they're the emotions, they're the heartbreaks, the traumas, the devastations from other lifetimes that we are running from and not dealing with, but still carrying with us. So they're affecting our connection to source, they're affecting our clear intuition. So it's time for them to be cleared and resolved. And that's why it's all perfect, it's all working perfectly. And your emotions will change wildly and erratically. So if you're feeling like there's something wrong with you because you could cry at the drop of a hat, or you feel angry really, really quickly, or certain emotions are stirring within you and you have no idea why, you don't know if it's yours, is it someone else's, it's okay. It's all just there for the purpose of clearing, and it's natural that this triggering happens. So you'll bump into someone who has the same name as a tyrant ex that you've been running from for years, or you'll, become friends with someone that reminds you of a family member that you have deep-rooted issues with, or someone who put you down all the time, or you'll never be able to get away from a job that that's a 9 to 5 and you hate it and you just can't get out of it. These patterns are coming up for a reason. So there's a reason why you feel so deeply angry and annoyed. It's because you've done it a million times and your soul is fed up. Your soul says, let's finish this pattern, let's move on, let's do it better, and let's clear it. So that's why all these things are coming up. The universe is almost triggering you on purpose to make sure that you realise these emotions and feelings when you're really sensitive, and so that you'll deal with them and heal them. And the good news is that once they're done, they're done. They're not coming back. So some of those challenges that you're coming through in your life that you feel are relentless and you just can't get past, once they are done, they are done. And I mean it, you're not coming back next time around to get into the same loop. It's finished. So that's the beauty of doing this work. Any work you change now is going to stay with you from any other incarnations that you make, any other experiences that you have. It's a change that happens on the soul level and it won't change back. It's true to who you are. Okay, so it's really important. So they're the two main stages that we're going to focus on. So the initial stage, the awakening and preparation stage, and then the healing stage when all these emotions come up, because grounding is the key to moving through those two stages. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and anxious and stressed out because your energies are opened and your energies have been charged and your energies have been heightened, these are all things that are supposed to happen on the spiritual awakening journey. But if you don't want to stay stuck in that stage, you need to learn appropriate grounding to move through those stages so that you can get to life purpose and aligning with the divine and, you know, stepping into your soul's mission and all these amazing things that happen when you step forward. So I just want to repeat that so you really get it, okay? Grounding is the key to move through those first two stages. Without grounding, you're just going to go round in circles. And you can do that if you like. It's absolutely up to you. But I can tell you firsthand, it's not much fun. So it's much easier to implement those skills of grounding frequently and daily and starting to move through at a smooth pace and make progress. Okay, so I want to talk a bit about what happens when grounding is not in place, because we're talking about this like, you know, different things that happen, but I want to make it really clear that you understand that most of the experiences that you're having in your spiritual awakening that are challenging and hard and difficult are a result of being ungrounded. Okay, it's really important that you see that, because grounding is actually easy. Grounding is a simple thing that you can do daily. Now, it's a little bit different for us going through spiritual awakening, but there's a lot that you could do to move through that. It doesn't have to be hard. And I need to stress that it doesn't have to be this hard. If you learn grounding and you put those things in place, you can start to move through and you can be gentle with yourself and you can take it at a pace that's comfortable for you and you can come out the other side. So it's a simple thing that can have such a big impact. Okay, let's talk about some of those things. So if you don't have proper grounding in place, you're going to feel spacey, you're going to feel disconnected. You're probably going to feel that life is quite unbalanced. That's a common one. You're going to feel that nothing really ever levels out. You're always kind of stressed out and imbalanced and out of control. And like I said before, normal daily life becomes an unmanageable burden. And this really happened for me. Simple things, you know, I was a hairdresser at the time, and doing a cut and blow dry became like a mountain to climb. And it wasn't the action, it was the energy of it. I just didn't have any emotional, mental or physical space left to deal with anyone else's stuff. And I was too ungrounded. That was the cause of it. Also, when you're ungrounded, those emotional issues, they're going to rise up like a roller coaster. They're going to be uncontrollable, they're going to be erratic, and they're going to trigger really, really frequently because you're not in a space to anchor that energy down. So if you can ground yourself, you'll find that they calm, that they smooth out, that they come up less frequently, and that when they do, you have more structure and grounding to deal with it in a way that is manageable. Because it's not meant to be hard, it's not meant to be, you know, horrific. It's just, you just need to keep moving through. So it's really important that you have that. Also, without proper grounding, your sensitivities will stay very, very sensitive. So if you're not grounded enough, those sensitivities, those emotional sensitivities and those empathic abilities are going to stay so turned on to the highest level, and you won't be able to turn them back down, because your soul is telling you, you need to heal this, you need to feel this, you need to clear this. So you need to take control to say, yeah, I'll feel it, but we're just going to tone things down and take things at a pace that my physical body can manage. Because from way up there, your soul says, yeah, I'll do it, that'll be easy. That real messed up family down there, I'll incarnate in there, I can clear loads for them. I'll really help them out. And then when we get down here and we're in the physical body, we realise that it can be hellish, it can be so hard. So you need to take responsibility for your part in this, to anchor that energy in and make it something that's manageable for you. Make it something that you're purposely moving through instead of it's out of control for you. Let's see. Also, your brain won't be able to process or rationalise the experience. And this happened to me for about 4 years, and it was really hard, because when your brain can't make sense to understand or rationalise the experience, you become kind of lost and you feel very confused and you can't make sense. Hi Rashawn. You can't make sense of what's going on. So it's really, really important that you get to a state where your brain actually has a chance to catch up. Because when your brain has a chance to catch up and to process the experience and to understand what's actually going on, all of a sudden all those jigsaw pieces fit together and you start to have realizations. You start to recognise that you can move forward and that you do know your life purpose and that it is actually manageable. But those things won't come until you're fully, fully grounded. You'll also put a hold on your life purpose and your mission, because like I said before, if your brain can't make sense of it, Spirit aren't going to give it to you. So it's almost like you need to be the foundations, and you need to have the foundations in place for your soul to say, it's time, okay, let's know. It's time to know what the life purpose is. It's time to step into that energy, because they know you can handle it. They know that you're the right you're the right foundations to hold that in space and to actually take action and do something about it. It's really, really important. So, like I said, we can overcome all these things, and it's really not that hard. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be out of control. And I know you're probably sitting there thinking, yeah, right, but I've been there. I know how hard it is. And I know that you've probably spent most of your time crying into your pillow, wishing that it could be different, but there's a two-way thing, and you need to step up and take some responsibility for the experience that you're having to make it manageable for the physical body. Okay, so these are all the things that are going to change when you do have that grounding in place, and that's what this 3-day course is all about. So the things that you'll learn in this 3-day course will help you to come to this point. Okay, so once you are fully grounded, you're going to feel balanced and in control. So that kind of scary, unsettled, insecure energy that you have as part of your awakening, that won't be there anymore, because that's the structure, the physical structure that you're putting in place to support it. Okay, so that can really help. You'll also be more present and aware in the physical. And this is the point I was making before. You need to be aware and grounded and present in the physical if you want to fulfill your life purpose. Everyone asks, what's my life purpose, and when am I going to know, and when can I do it? Well, you can't if you're ungrounded and you've got all this emotional triggering and you're not secure in yourself. It's not going to happen, because you're not really a reliable vessel to hold that energy. But once you are, literally it can come to you so quickly. This all happened to me so quickly once I got grounded that I almost didn't want to trust it, because you're so used to thinking things aren't going to go right and it's going to be messy and it's going to be hard. Everything started to flow, and it was like, wow, this is actually really working, and this feels right. For the first time in my life, this really feels right. So allow yourself to make those steps and move ahead. Also, when you're grounded, you'll find that emotional sensitivity can lessen. So emotional triggering is going to be more spaced when you're grounded. So at the moment, you might find that it's you're triggered all the time. So you'll be triggered by the news, you'll be triggered by movies. This is why a lot of people go through awakening and say, I can't watch the news, I can't be on Facebook, I can't see what's going on in the world, it's all too horrible. It's because your sensitivities are, turned up so high, and your empathic abilities are turned up so high. So if you can ground that, you'll get to a place where you can actually manage to be around certain things and be a lot more comfortable without losing yourself to it, without it being out of control. Okay, that can happen. So you'll find that you also have less anxiety, because anxiety comes from being too charged and too open and turned up too high. So if you can ground that energy, it'll completely change your experience of what you're feeling and sensing and experiencing in that time. You'll also begin to understand that journey. So like I said about having insights and epiphanies, these are the things that are going to change. Because what I realised was when I went through my awakening, I went to this really high place. And once I got to that really high place, I was so ungrounded that I didn't want to come back down. So you'll probably relate to that. You start thinking, I want to go home. I don't really want to be here. Why did I come down here? Someone must have sent me against my will because I don't want to be here. You're just out of alignment with it all. But what happened to me was that I became really aligned, and I was having really powerful experiences and all this incredible wisdom, insights that I didn't know how to put them into words. They were so incredible. And the challenge was that I stayed in that space where I had all these insights, but I couldn't put them into words for a really long time. So I wanted to move ahead with my life purpose, and I wanted to step into my divinity and do all these amazing things, but I literally couldn't, because I couldn't verbalize and take action on the things that I was inspired to do. And it wasn't until I got grounded that literally within such a short space of time, it was like lightning struck my head. And one day I just went, and I know what I'm supposed to do. And I got out all this paper and I wrote everything down and planned it all out. It was like all of a sudden the vessel, which was me, was ready. And it was like someone just switched a button and went, download. And I got it all at once. And I was like, wow. So if you're not in a space where you can carry this, it's not going to come. Okay, so give yourself that space to heal, to ground, and then to be able to actually move forward into the good stuff rather than staying stuck in the bad. We've covered that. So your life purpose will become known, and you'll feel ready to move into it. And also it's important because some of those emotional issues that I was talking about, these are patterns that we're learning to undo. So even this concept of spiritual awakening being hard is a concept that we're trying to release. So this idea that life is hard, life is challenging, it's difficult, you try and you never get anywhere, all these things are all issues that we're releasing, which is why they're so intense right now. So we're trying to release them, and naturally by coming through the spiritual awakening process and believing that it is hard, and you tip over that other edge and you find out that it doesn't have to be hard, and it can be smooth, and things can go well. But initially it's like you're going to dip your toe in the water because you're so used to having it the other way while your soul was working through these programs, that you almost don't know how to accept it when the good stuff happens. It's like, that's a bit uncomfortable. I'm a bit unsure about that. That doesn't feel right. It feels kind of foreign. I'm not used to it. So it does take time. So don't beat yourself up, and just be gentle, and know that when you employ proper grounding every single day, you'll find that suddenly your energies will just ground themselves, and you'll have that incredible connection to source, and you'll be fully present in your physical body. And that's when you're not only here without anxiety and overwhelm and all these horrible sensitivities, that's all done. But it's a different state of being when you're in a space where your belief systems are good and healthy in your mind, because that affects the law of attraction. And then your life experience starts to change. And it's like, wow, I've struggled with that my whole life, and all of a sudden a gate just opened and I got through, and it's easy and everything's okay. So these are the things that make massive impact on your actual life. So it's not just about the next time around or whatever you're doing when you're finished here. It's about changing it for now. It's about, this new world that everyone's talking about. It's not going to float down out of the sky. It's not going to immediately change in front of our eyes. You're the new world, and you need to change your perspective of the world so that what you're seeing is... Sorry about that, I think we got cut off. So that you're so clear that you can be in that space where it's just all good. You're ready to move and it's all good. So there's exciting times ahead, but we just need to get that grounding in place. I can't stress how important it is. It will change everything for you. So please trust me on that one. Yeah, it takes practice, it takes a little bit of know-how, but the things that I'll share over the next 3 days really will help. And it's important for you to know, we're kind of finishing up, because I don't want to spend too long and unground people by talking about it. So we're not going to spend too long today, but it's important that you know that there is going to be a free lesson available, and I'll add the link after the webinar's finished today. There's a free link available that you can access I've got some grounding training, so don't stress about worrying about remembering everything that we've covered today. It's all in the lesson that you can access for free. And I've also got a free energy healing and download session. Now, I'm going to be explaining more about downloads as we go ahead, but basically when you use this energy healing download that I'll provide the link to, you're going to get the how can I describe it? The foundations, the energetic blueprint for making your awakening easier. So we're going to teach your energies how to be grounded, because sometimes they don't know. We're going to teach your energies how to process this new incoming energy in a way that's easy, that's gentle on your physical body and your system. And we're going to teach your body how to stay grounded and for your spirit to still be connected to that high energy. So this is all about becoming the bridge so that you're connected up nice and high, you're clear, you're pure connection to source, but you're also present and grounded in the physical world. So I'll put the link in the group. You'll be able to find it. I'll put it everywhere for you. You can get free access to that. Use it. Please use it, because you'll find that the downloads themselves will make a big difference. So the stuff we're covering in this 3-day live event are the physical things that you can put in place to ground yourself every day. This is the physical know-how that you need, but this free lesson that you're getting access to is the energetic stuff that we need to deal with. We need to deal with the physical body, and we need to deal with the soul to make sure that they're bridging together, they're becoming a team, and they're becoming one, and they can actually merge in a way that's healthy and balanced for you to move you forward. So that free lesson is going to be available until Sunday, so please make use of it. It's only 10 minutes long, but it's essentially the equivalent of an energy healing session with me. And if I had had those downloads when I was going through this, if I'd had some of this information, it would have made things so much easier. So make use of that, give yourself 10 minutes out just to relax and accept those downloads. And I'll share the link later, which will really help. And tomorrow we've got even more to deal with. So we've kind of got the foundations in place, the understanding that most of the challenges you're experiencing are a result of being ungrounded. Most of the things that you want to move through into, all these positive states of being aligned with your purpose and your divinity, free of all these emotional issues, they come from being grounded. Okay, so hopefully you've got that. And if you haven't, the text lesson's there for you, so don't worry about that. You can learn a little bit more and study it a wee bit more if you want to take some more time. And then tomorrow, let's just make sure we've got everything in. So much to cover. Tomorrow we'll be covering the crucial things to avoid. So this is the interesting thing. When I went through awakening, there were a lot of things I did that I didn't realise were perpetuating the problem. And they kind of go against the grain of the normal advice that you would get, which amazes me that no one covers this stuff. But so it's really important that you know the things definitely not to do, because some things will make it worse. So we're going to cover that tomorrow to make sure that you can avoid them. And you'll probably be surprised at what some of them are. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you, and sharing some grounding techniques that will work, that you can actually use. But make sure you use that free lesson so that we're getting the physical stuff in place and the spiritual blueprint as well, and things will be a lot easier. So thank you everyone for joining us. I really appreciate you being here, and I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you tomorrow.